Today's video, I'm going to walk through some of my mustache styling basics and how I took Death Grip Sudden Death to make this mustache. I hope that you enjoy. Something that I learned that helped me out a lot when styling my mustache is don't use a beard oil when you're going to use a mustache wax. Mustache waxes are oil soluble. So if you put an oil into your mustache and then try to put the wax on, it's going to kind of stay gummy. Now, I have also found that hair alignment helps a lot in the prep and saves me time during styling. As you saw, I blow dried my mustache while it was damp after getting out of the shower. This allows me to give it direction and kind of tame the hairs down. Then I'm going to take a comb and kind of align those hairs so that they're like this versus being all jumbled. Now, one of the mistakes I was making early on in my mustache journey was I was pulling hair in from over here because it made my mustache look thicker. But as I styled it, and then later throughout the day, as I opened my mouth, the tension from taking cheek hair caused the mustache to split. Bare Bones is a medium hold mustache wax. You really don't need an external heat source in order to make it pliable and get it out of the tin. Sudden Death is what I'm going to be using, and at room temperature, I can scrape it out and make it pliable between my fingers. Bone Crusher is an extra firm mustache wax. With this at room temperature, it's advised that you run a hairdryer over the mustache wax in order to soften it up to make it more pliable. This is the Death Grip Original Blend. This is extra strong, extra firm, and extremely tacky. It is recommended you use a heat source to warm it. Rub it between your fingers, put it in, and before any adjustments, use a hairdryer to loosen it up. This is going to hold and be very water resistant. With the Death Grip waxes, they usually come with a guitar pick. You can use this to scrape it out. Typically, I'll take my thumb, and as you can see, that's firm at room temperature, and I'll just scrape out a little bit. I usually coat my nail. I got a bigger mustache, but that's the mustache wax, and if you squeeze it between your fingers, you can see at room temperature it's a little sticky. This is how you can warm Sudden Death at room temperature. This is your heat source. Now if you look, it's not as sticky between the fingers. You've made it more pliable. I have found that if you go from the middle outward, that it helps create a good foundation and will hold better throughout the day. I make multiple passes on each side and then do some adjustments. The more you talk, the more you breathe, the more you drink, you're going to soften up the hairs right here. So returning here and going out is going to help provide that stronger foundation so it'll last longer. As I'm pinching the wax on, I'm sliding down because I'm trying to keep those hairs aligned, right? I don't want them twisted. I found that when I was twisting my mustache, if I had to make an adjustment with a comb later, I was yanking hairs out. If you're feeling any tugging or your fingers are sticking, then your wax is not as pliable as it should be. You can run a hairdryer on your fingers or run it over the tin. That's usually the cause for yanking or plucking. It's good too to constantly wipe the wax off of your fingers. If you get a buildup of wax on your fingers, they can become real tacky, and as you're adjusting or styling, your fingers can get stuck in the mustache and wind up pulling apart, and that can be super frustrating. All right, pass one on the right side. Make it pliable, coat the fingers, start in the middle, transfer the wax, and try to keep the hairs aligned. That helps me quite a lot. Pass number 3. Coat the fingers, make it pliable. Start back in the middle, giving that hair direction, right? Coating it. I like to do one side, then the other. The wax will start to firm up a little bit between each pass. So that allows me to kind of see where the mustache is going, make any changes I need. If I need to run the comb through, as you can see, this is going down like that, and this side is behaving. That's typical of a mustache. Your facial hair is like other hair. One side may grow faster than the other. I don't recommend trimming your mustache very often, as one side can grow a little faster. If you're styling it different one day, the hairs may not align. You start trimming and then the next day you look at it and this side's now a little bit shorter, and next thing you know, you're all the way back to here and you got to start over. All right, so I've done 3 passes each side. I say that's stage 1. Why do I say stage 1? I put the mustache wax in. Now I'm going to give it about 3 to 5 minutes in order to firm up, and then I can assess where I need to make adjustments to finish up, and that's stage 2. All right, as you can see, I still got a little bit of loose hairs, and I kind of want to firm up the rest of this. So now to move on to stage 2, and I'm going to dig out a little bit of wax and not rub it as much because I want it to remain a little tacky. Alrighty, stage 2 with sudden death. Starting back in the middle again. I'm really trying to grab up any hairs that I didn't get through stage 1. And I really want to get more of the wax kind of out on the tips because I want to finish these guys up. I may do a Hungarian, I may just fold it over and do loops just on the end, but we'll see how it goes. Just add a little bit in layers. That really helps my mustache when I do it that way. Still doing the pinch and slide, transferring the wax from my fingers into my mustache. Trying to give it a little tip out there on the end. You don't have to be rough. Push it down just a little. I want it to come down and come back up. I may have to revisit this side a little bit. I'm going to let it firm up just a little bit, and I'm going to work a little bit on this side. Just a little bit. Rub it a little. I want it to still be somewhat tacky. Start in that middle. There we go. For me, one side of my mustache seems to be thicker than the other. So the way I control it is kind of compressing it down like this. I grab the mustache and I use my index finger to kind of push it together. There we go. Trying to get a little more of the wax out there, doing a pinch, right? And my fingers are still sticky. This is what I talk about. If your fingers are really, really tacky, this last little bit here, you might be down like, oh, it's good. And then it pulls it apart. A little bit, still sticky. There we go. Just trying to add a little wax, pinch and slide. See how it looks symmetry wise. Symmetry, true symmetry, is, in my experience, is somewhat of an illusion. I'm always chasing it and it's always just outside of my reach, but I do the best I can. Well, that looks pretty good. Alrighty, I think that about does it. I'm going to put the wax in my pocket and carry it with me throughout the day. Typically, I don't have to add any more wax. I might have a hair pop loose. I can just pinch it back together. That's why I like to use mustache wax like Deathgrip. That's it. Filming's done. Get out of here.